October, I came back and did a mite wash, and oh my gosh, it was one of the highest I've ever seen, well over 60. And that's, that's got to be a death sentence to have that big of a mite wash. And they still actually had capped brood then. Check that out, they're alive. Can't believe it. Ryan Williamson here with Sourwood Farm. I wanted to show a colony here that I really did not expect to live. This colony had a mite wash in the 30s in July, into July, which is like way high, much higher than any of the other yards. This whole yard had issues. It was doing experimental tests with queens. This one here is headed by a queen that I got from Alvarez, that was Randy Oliver's breeding program. And actually a whole bunch of these did. And their mite washes in July were, they must have had some input from mites from somewhere, because it was pretty ridiculous, this yard. So anyway, I gave up on trying to run them treatment free and thought I should try to save the colonies. And this colony got a full dose of Apogard into July into August. And then October, I came back and did a mite wash, and oh my gosh, it was one of the highest I've ever seen, well over 60. And that's, that's got to be a death sentence to have that big of a mite wash. And they still actually had capped brood then, so it wasn't just because all the mites have been, gotten out from, brood hatching. So I just did the Hail Mary, gave them a lot of oxalic acid vapor through the fall, and believe it or not, they're living. Let's just take a peek inside. Look at that. Pretty strong colony. They must not have had much virus issues, even though they had a pretty big mite load. That's pretty cool. I actually requeened them at that point because I figured no need to keep those genetics. Now, over here, another colony, and this one had a mite wash of 15 in July. I also gave it full dose of Apogard. The October wash, I think that was October 4th, was 2. So I actually did not give it any more treatment. So I decided to let it run and see what happened. And they're alive. That's pretty neat. Let's see. That's the upper honey super. Let's see if I can crack down here. Beautiful. So anyway, it's kind of neat to see colonies that kind of defy the expectations of high mite washes equaling death. But overall, that's certainly not something I like to see. It's February 27th, and I'm at my Sugar Hollow yard. This is a yard that I did a video on mite testing and Harbo assay results in the summer, and just thought I'd drop back in and check in. Everybody's alive, which is pretty great. And I had 7 here that scored a 4 on the Harbo assay. I left those treatment free, and they're kicking actually the strongest ones in the yard. And the video that I wanted to mainly focus on is this colony here, which was a problematic colony. We don't like to admit the problems, but part of beekeeping is, there's always outliers at the awesome end that we love to talk about, and then the ones that not so good. So that's what we're going to talk about here, is this one here that was my worst colony in this yard back at the end of August. So I think it was the last day of August. I did mite wash, and it washed 33 mites. Went ahead and did a Harbo assay on this one, where I was picking apart the brood, and in the pupas there were gobs of reproductive mites. Scored a fat 0, about as bad as you can get. So yeah, it was one to dismantle and try to save. So the process I'm doing with my breeding program is to let everybody run treatment free as long as I can through the year. Last treatment would be in Christmas time, so they were treatment free all the way to the end of August, and then that lets the mite pressure build. I can't find out if a colony is resistant without mite pressure. So let the pressure build, and then, some of them were awesome in this yard, but clearly this one was not. And so now I've put myself at a risk, right? My colony had too many mites. And with that risk, I run the risk of losing the colony to, the classic crash and burn, where you have too many viruses in the bees going into winter, and then they dwindle. So my goal was to not lose the colony, not spread disease, keep my numbers up, because that's what pays my bills. And the process I've been leaning towards is to do a rapid requeening to change the genetics. And that's actually part of the reason this colony was bad, was I didn't do that the year before. So 2 years ago, I assessed this colony and it was not mite resistant. I thought, I'll requeen the next spring. What do you know, last spring they swarmed before I got to requeening. They actually swarmed twice. So you would think with the brood breaks that would help with mites, which I think it does, but it did not with this colony. They actually were the highest mite wash in my entire bee yard. and they also became aggressive and were lousy with mites. So yeah, definite requeen. So what I did was I found the queen, this would be the last day of August, and pinched her and dropped in a mated marked queen that I had raised off of a resistant, proven resistant breeder queen at home. And I dropped that queen in here, put oxalic acid glycerin pads, so extended release oxalic acid, and also vaporized them. I mean, I'm just going at it with what I can. I think I dropped back another 3 times and vaporized throughout the next month or so. And I came back, let's see, October 4th, and the mite wash was 0. So that's pretty cool. Let's take a peek inside and see what they look like. Got bees coming in with pollen. That's a good sign. So bees in the slot of the feeder. There we go. I, in the winter, put in some kind of sugar glop that I like to use as an emergency feed, and that's the residual of this paper here is from that, so we'll take that off. And yeah, reasonable population, not huge. Reasonable weight too. I think I might give them a little bit of syrup, but not much. We have a warm spell now, and then it'll be getting cold again, so I don't want to put too much syrup in here, more than they can consume. So go ahead and see if I can do that one-handed. There we go. So I guess what I really wanted to emphasize mostly with this video was that in order to breed for mite resistance, we have to let mites climb to see if the colony is indeed resistant or not. But that puts us at a great risk. And I feel like I'm coming to a position of management where I can do that and not take too much risk. If I can quickly do the requeening to change the genetics, and then this oxalic acid glycerin and also OA oxalic acid vapor in combination seems to work pretty well. I had some other colonies at a different out yard that are also alive as of yesterday, and they washed, oh gosh, it was up in the 40s, and that was in late August, and then, or beginning of September actually for those. So imagine a mite count of 40, and then a month later, mite count was 0 on both of those. So pretty good result with that. I'm pretty tickled. I'll experiment more with that this summer, because I'm sure I'll have some outliers that I'm not proud of and have high mite washes. Last night I was putting together the recordings showing those videos of the high mite wash colonies and how the colonies fared afterwards. And you know, after recording anything, you realize all the things you wish you had said. So I just wanted to come down here. I'm tucked into a low spot trying to get out of the wind, and speak a little bit more about dealing with catch-up. So, you know, running the bees mite treatment free means that with the colonies that don't show resistance, I end up playing catch-up, trying to deal with mite issues a little bit too late. Those were kind of extreme examples. Most of the time I'm catching the hives way earlier. Those are like, I didn't have that many, maybe 6 or so that got really high mite washes above 30. And yeah, so why did I use oxalic acid? I guess that's really what I'm, you know, wanting to talk about. And I've played with a lot of different treatments over the summers, and the challenge here in Central Virginia is it's pretty darn hot in the summer and also humid. And most of the treatments I've played with have a lot of stress. I don't use hard chemicals like Amitraz. I just have never felt comfortable with that, and especially not now hearing about resistance in bees. So let's see, formic acid. Obviously that one, you need a temperature window below 85 degrees, and that's pretty rare here in the summer. I played with it a few times and always had, yeah, just pretty harsh impact on the bees, and so I can't really, pretty much that's off the table. And that leaves Apigard as one that a lot of people use for summer treatments. Also finding that is quite stressful on the colonies, especially nukes, and I run a lot of nukes, and I would have robbing issues, I would have issues with the bees almost absconding sometimes, and dead brood. And the challenge is, you know, also trying to shift the genetics. You know, I'm trying to requeen at the same time that I'm trying to deal with the mites. And so doing formic or Apigard doesn't really jive with adding a new queen, because both of those treatments are very stressful, and it would almost certainly lead to the new queen being rejected. At least that's my fear. So that kind of has meant that I've stayed with oxalic, which I find to be the, you know, it's not perfect, but it's fairly gentle on the bees, and effective on the mites when they're on the bees and not in the brood. So that's where the multiple applications are trying to hit the colony when it's during a brief period of broodlessness. So in other words, if I have a colony in July, let's say, and I find that their mite count's climbing and they're going to get kicked out of my breeding program, I'm going to pinch that queen, drop in a queen cell, and then try to hit that colony about 18 days later with oxalic acid vapor, and that's going to get the majority of the mites and get us to a clean slate. So that the new queen, with hopefully much better genetics, has the ability to have a chance. I want her to live and be able to start fresh. So anyway, just wanted to share that a little bit. Here comes the wind, so I'm going to jump off here and try to get this video up online. And yeah, love to hear people's experiences, reactions, and yeah, it's kind of a little hard taking risks, and also kind of a little bit more of an adventure. So yeah, thanks a lot.